Hello everyone, it's a pleasure to introduce to you today Jonathan Brough, who's taking over as head of St Swithuns Prep School in September when Mrs Lyons-Smith moves to Stroud. And we're delighted that he's joining us, and as it isn't possible for you to meet Jonathan in person at the moment, we thought that we'd get to know him a little through this conversation. Now, Jonathan and I first met in 2005 when we were both at City of London School for Girls. Jonathan was head of the prep department and I was the academic deputy head. Now, thinking back to that time, it occurs to me that I don't know much about what he did before he started at City. So, Jonathan, have you always been a teacher?
Actually, Jane, yes, I have. I think teaching is very much in the blood. Both of my parents were teachers. And I remember around the time when I was in senior school and A-level option forms came home, there was a list of what you might do when you go on to university. And one of the options on that said, a B.Ed is a teaching qualification. And I just looked at my mum and said, well, that'll be what I'm doing then. And it seemed to be a bit of a foregone conclusion. I think when I was younger, both my parents had tried to put me off teaching, but they didn't succeed. It was the thing I always wanted to do. So throughout my working life, yes, I've been a teacher. I've done a few other things on the side. When I was training at college over the summer holidays, I worked in Adam Brooks Hospital as a children's motivator because their hospital school obviously closed over the summer, and yet the children needed some sort of distraction from whatever ills they were fighting. So I went in and I worked with them at that point. I also, for a little while, was a computer coder. In the current interesting circumstances that we find ourselves at school, I've taken over the year 3 and 4 computing scheme of work in my current school, and indeed got an email from a parent a couple of days ago asking if I was really going to be teaching her child computing. So I did take pleasure in telling her in the days of the Research Machines 380Z, I was a coder. I've also done some educational journalism, largely for the educational press, and I've been a schools inspector for ISI. But in terms of the main job throughout my working life, yeah, I've always been a teacher.
Jonathan, that's a very impressive list of things that you've done. And have you always been a primary teacher?
I have. The course which I did at college was primary and middle school, so I think my degree somewhere says I'm qualified for 6-year-olds up to 13-year-olds. At one time or other in my life, I've been a class teacher of every year group between reception and year 8. On the whole, yeah, I think it'd be fair to say I've done most of my time with years 3, 4, 5, and 6. I did do a whole year with reception. I don't think my trousers were ever the same again because I just had a year of having my trousers tugged by children saying, Mr. Brough, Mr. Brough. And in my current school, we've recently taken over a nursery, so that goes down to children as young as 2. But definitely 3-year-olds through to 11-year-olds are my favourite age. It's the time they're inquisitive, they're sponges, they soak up everything that you offer to them. I'm fairly happy teaching any curriculum subject. At the moment at school, I'm seen as the Latin teacher and the classics teacher. That's not because they're particular passions, that's because nobody else wants to do them. I think where I'm happiest is probably English, maths, and French. Those are the things that really get me excited when I'm working with children, definitely.
So we both left City in 2010, and you mentioned your current school. So where did you go after City?
Well, you went to lovely Winchester. I didn't do that. I didn't move home at all. I'm still living in Islington, where we've been, I think, for about 18 years now. But those days are coming to an end, and we're hopefully, at the time we can go house hunting or whatever, we're coming your way. No, I stayed where I am in terms of living, and my school, which I run, is in Putney in southwest London. It's called Hurlingham. It's a non-selective co-educational school now for children aged 2 to 11. I've had a fantastic 10 years. It's been great to lead the school through its various incarnations and periods of growth, but I think maybe time for a new challenge for me now.
So why have you decided to come down to Winchester and to work at St Swithuns?
Well, I was going to say, I think it's to be fair, it's St Swithuns much more than it's Winchester. As you know, I've been lucky enough to be on your list of feeder heads for a while because we sent you some children from Hurlingham in the past. Indeed, some wonderful young ladies now with you who spent their formative years in Putney with me, and I've admired St Swithuns on all your cluster training days, which you so kindly put on for primary school heads. I've watched it from afar. I've admired the fact that it's grown so much as a prep school. You've got that lovely new build. You've got such a wonderful campus with so many opportunities for the children. The children are so lucky to have best practice in terms of a learning environment indoors and best practice for a learning environment outdoors as well. They are also so fortunate that they can avoid 11 plus effectively. And one of the biggest changes, I think, in London education, maybe in the last 10 years, is 11 plus has become so exceptionally stressful, pretty much for all children. It went through a phase of people saying, oh, well, of course, all the schools all want the same children, are all fighting over the same children, as if the more academically gifted found 11 plus a walk in the park and the others didn't. I don't even think that's true anymore now. I think it's become a hurdle in education that you don't need and that doesn't benefit anybody. And I'd quite like to move away from that. Also, yeah, I've done 10 years of co-ed. I've loved 10 years of co-ed, but I think my heart is in a girls' school. I think girls do learn differently from boys. I think you can do more exciting things in a single-sex school, actually, be it a girls' school or be it a boys' school. I think there are great times ahead. So loads of reasons for St Swithuns, and so looking forward to it. Absolutely.
And we are really looking forward to you coming to us, Jonathan. And more to the point, we're looking forward to meeting Mischief. Now, I've heard about Mischief, and I know that the parents of the prep girls would really like to know a little bit about him. Why did the children go home talking about him after you'd come in to do an assembly? And what about the jelly babies?
Ah, Mischief and the jelly babies. Well, I have got Mischief with me, but I've got to be very careful at this bit, because when you are trained in how to work with individuals such as Mischief, there are things you should never show people. There we go. And I managed it without getting it on camera. So this is Mischief. Mischief is an interesting character who came with me when I visited St Swithuns, didn't you? Yeah, came with me when I visited St Swithuns a little while ago, and we did an assembly together. And the reason we did that was I knew that you were going to ask me to do an assembly for all the young ladies at St Swithuns, and I actually went to the school where I'm teaching at the moment, had a word with one of the year 6 groups that I teach for English, and I said, what are the assemblies that you remember most? What do you remember me doing? And they gave me a list of topics, because at that stage I didn't know what you were going to ask me to talk about. And then I tried to work out what they all had in common. And the thing they all had in common was I didn't do those assemblies by myself. I did them with Mischief. Actually, I did them with pretty much this chap here, but this is a new one. There is an older Mischief who lives in my office at school. He's getting ready for retirement now. These creatures, he's about 15 years old. You may have met the original Mischief before, because he came to City a few times. He's actually going bald now, because even though these creatures have lovely heads of hair, they do get stroked a lot, and they tend to stroke themselves a lot. And then clearly after 15 years, things start to go. So this is a new Mischief that he came with me. He got all squashed up in a suitcase, which he didn't like, but then we stayed overnight in the Premier Inn in Winchester, and he came with me into school, and he talked all about 2 of the most important concepts in anyone's life, and those are the words please and thank you. And I was very grateful that you gave me the topic of gratitude to talk about in that assembly, because it's one of the most important messages you can give to any school community, is how important it is to be kind, how important it is to treat everyone in the way you would like to be treated. So Mischief thought about his favorite books, and it's over there. Yes, I know it's over there, but it's underneath another book that I was picking up to show Miss Gandee earlier. Mischief, right? You can do it. There we go. We found this book, which was called Please, Mr. Panda, and is all about Mr. Panda sharing his donuts. But Mischief thought it might be a bit tricky to carry donuts from London on the train all the way down to Winchester, and then take them to the Premier Inn, and then not eat them all night, and then bring them into St Swithuns. So what we did instead was we brought some jelly babies, and Mischief acted out the book, only giving jelly babies to people who said please and thank you. And that was the assembly which we delivered together to all the young ladies at St Swithuns. And I believe he then became somewhat of a topic of conversation.
That's fabulous. I shall look forward to meeting Mischief again in person at some stage. So thank you very much, Mr. Brough.
You are more than welcome. Thank you.